Okay, we are now streaming, at least we should be. So if you can hear me, please let me know. I'd love to make sure that everything is working because as we know with live streams, they don't always work that way, especially as I'm still kind of playing with some new equipment here. Today, we are doing the glue test. And so I figured this would be a good chance. I was thinking about doing a Q&A today, but I thought, I really got to get this glue test done today, and I've got a lot left to do. So I've got, 5 more over here, this one, and then I've got, 20 outside that still need to be done, and then 4 more over there. So I've still got a lot of these boards to go through, and each one takes about a half an hour or so to go through. So I've got a good bit of a chunk of work to do. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be trying to monitor the chat. And if I don't get to your question, it scrolls up too far, go ahead and post it below. If you can just put question at the beginning or something like that so I can pop out, I'll try and get to those, but I'm going to be focusing on the glue test and kind of talking through that. And hopefully I'm actually going to be giving you some of the new insights that I'm seeing in this and possibly what is some of the preliminary ideas, although I still have a lot of this to do. I did all of the long grain to long grain. I did all of the gap filling tests, so I know all the data from those two. And if you are one of my patrons on Patreon, I did a live stream for you guys a couple days ago, and I actually went through some of those findings. So I'm not going to talk about those findings because those I just kind of head out for the patrons. But today we're going to be going into this, and I'm working on end grain to long grain. So all of these blocks are glued on from the end here. Let me switch over to this one. And you can kind of see all of these blocks here are then glued onto the substrate, end grain sticking out at me and going towards the board. So when I shear them, I'm assuming I'm not going to get much of any glue tear out. If I do get any glue tear out, it'll be rather surprising to me. But the poundages will be a little bit lower on these as well. So here you can see the scale, and the number on here is in a holding pattern, so whatever was the last pressure to go on there is the pressure that shows up. So I can take that back to whatever it is and go on. So I'm going to be working through this. We do have a couple questions. Are you ready for this? I know I am. Yes. Which glue do you think will hold the best before you test them? I really don't want to have any preconceived ideas about this because there really isn't a good way for me to do this double blind, so I don't want to be, thinking about one doing better than the other. I kind of view epoxy to be doing the best, but I don't know. I'm really open to seeing some surprises, and I want to see something that's like, ooh, this is kind of new. I hadn't thought about this. So I'm interested to see how it goes and what in my mind gets blown. I don't know. So let's take this up till we start engaging. Right there. Question. How would you qualify good enough, i.e. some point being able to hold an extra pound doesn't really matter? Yeah, good enough. Almost all these glues are plenty good enough for general joints. If your joint is any good, you don't need much of any glue strength. And you'd be surprised with how little glue strength you actually need in order to hold it. But our glue joints aren't always good, and a lot of times we are relying on just the glue, like in a table lamination where we don't have anything holding them together other than glue. How good is your glue? Does it need to be really great? I don't know, but a lot of people want to know this data, so that's why I'm putting it out there. So let's see what this one gets. 30, 40, 60, 80, 100, 139, and it broke. 139.5, good clean break. And then on all these, I come in here and I detail this is block long to end grain, test 2 out of set C. And this one is 139, it broke. 139, and then I write down here 139. Oops, let me move that over there. Wrong column. 139. 166, that was the last one. And then I'm saving all these blocks so I can look at them in the future. Let's see. Can you please turn the meter so that we can see the numbers? I don't know if you can. Here, let me see if that helps. So I gotta reset it back. And then we're going to move on to the next set. Some of these boards are really tight, and some of them need a little bit of persuading to fit down into the jig. Ooh, too far over. Let's do it right there. There we go. Slide that over there. And let's do test number 3 on this one. Lower this hammer back down. So I'm not talking to people. I can do these about once every 35, 40 seconds. But talking to you guys, I don't know if it will make it longer or slower. What are you? Oh, there. Got a little burn there. So let's see. Question. Is anyone else ready for the weekend? Yeah, I'm hoping to have the video with all this information coming out Saturday. So see how it goes. Hold there. And then I'm also keeping these flat against the surface so I get a nice clean shear. And then also the moment of rotation is always at the same point. I'm always keeping this block tight up against the substrate block. So let's go. 15, 20, 40, 131. And a really good clean break. That was glue number 3. So this is long to end grain, glue 3, selection C, 131. 131. And that was high glue 315. 131. On to the next one. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them. I'm gonna, in between each test, I'll check the chat and see if anything pops up. Did you do any end grain filling for those, or are they just end grain? These are just end grain joints. In the future, I may do like sizing and things like that. There's a lot of debate in sizing, so I didn't want to do that. I just wanted this to be strict end grain. But in the future, I would like to do sizing or filling substrate. So hold tight up against. Okay, let's go. 14, 77. Uh-oh, my hold didn't go on that one. I'm going to have to go back and watch the video on that one. That's why I'm also recording them all. So I'm going to set this one off here. Every now and then I just forget to hit the hold the second time. But that's why I record every clip so I can see what the last number was. Long to end grain. Thankfully, it's only like the 3rd time it's happened out of all the tests, but maybe it's because I'm talking to you guys. See. Question mark, hold off on later. And this one is a question mark, hold off on later. Until I can get back to it. Question, the variance in pressure you are putting against the blocks to hold them in place skew the results? No, because I'm not actually putting any pressure on the block. I'm putting pressure on the frame to keep the frame against it, not on the block itself. So move you down a little bit. Actually set the hold this time. Slide this back, tight against frame. Set this block in. Up close to. Good, good, good. And so here, I'm actually, what I'm doing is I'm holding the load cell against this because I'm pushing out away from the block, there's actually a rotation on the block itself. I'm pulling more on the bottom than on the top. And there's really no way to fix that. There's no way to push immediately on the glue joint. So the best way I can do to keep that the same every time is keep the load cell pushed against the wood. So my thumb is down here pushing against the load cell, and I just make sure that this frame is held against the wood substrate and the shearings for it face. So I'm not actually putting any pressure on the block itself. So let's go 19, 30, 70, 80, 100, and 111. So this is long-grained end grain, test 5, section C, 1, 1, 1. Come down here, 1, 1, 1. And that was hide glue 192. So I'll repeat again. Greetings from Ukraine. Good to have you on here. I actually got to meet a couple of my fans from China yesterday, which was kind of cool to see people that far away. Yeah, I actually reset the meter. I recalibrate the load cell each morning to make sure that we're good there. Hold is on that. Question, did you put glue on both surfaces and how much? Because when I watch James at King's Fine Woodworking, he drowns the wood in glue. On my actual glue application for this is I put glue on the block, but I put enough glue on the block so when I put the block onto the substrate and pulled it away, there would be a sufficient amount of glue on both sides. And then enough so when I clamped it with the squeeze clamp, there was glue squeeze out on all sides. So there's enough glue in there so that it squeezes out. There were a couple exceptions to that. And I can't remember which one it was. The manufacturer suggested something different, and so I followed the manufacturer's suggestion unless there wasn't a manufacturer's suggestion for how much to put in there. So yeah, I put glue on one block, but then when I put it on there, I pulled it away to make sure that there was enough glue on both surfaces. So let's get this one up. Hold is in place. Block against substrate. Lift it up in place. Here. Okay, here we go, and again. Ooh, 160. 203, our best producer thus far. What is this one? This one is homemade hide glue. Cool. I've actually been surprised. My homemade hide glue has been one of the better hide glues. I guess that's bragging, but oh well. Let's see, I need to mark on this side. This is long grain, end grain. This is test number 6 and C. And so on each of these blocks, I have a number on here that corresponds with a glue type. I don't know what the number is to the glue type until after the test, and then I'll look down here and check it, and I have it written down here. So 203. 203. Okay, let's move the block over again. Ooh, this one's tight. Wiggle down in. Oops. There we go. Slide that over. Set you in place, lower you down. Let's see if there are any questions. Which glue did best so far? Well, I'm not going to tell you because I reserved that information for the Patreons who are currently paying for this. So I will tell you that on Saturday. But to be said, thus far with the gap filling, I was really, really surprised with gap filling. I wasn't as surprised with long grain to long grain, but I had some very big surprises on gap filling. So don't trust your assumptions. Let's say that. What's the best homemade? What's the worst? So far, the worst has been the the homemade casein glue, but that was because it was rotten. I accidentally left it out for a couple days, and I wasn't quite sure would rotten casein glue be good or not. So I put it on there, and a lot of those blocks have actually fallen off before I've even gotten to testing, so they get 0. So homemade casein, that's probably the worst thus far. Although in the future, I am going to do homemade casein and do it when it's not rotten. So hopefully that'll do better. So let's see. So yeah, right now, the worst and best is homemade. Hold on against the surface, set it in the right spot, and let's go. 40, 70, 90, 153. What was this? This was 53 was Titebond Original. 153. Now you guys are all seeing one instance of one glue on one test, and I'll be doing 10 instances of each block of each glue. So for every one of these Titebond originals that I do long grain to end grain, I'll actually have 9 more of these to do in the future. So long grain to end grain. This one is tested glue 9, section C. 153, 153. And I'm recording it on the blocks of wood as well as on the chart, so if I ever have any questions, I can actually go back and look at the block of wood as well as look at the wood substrate itself to see if anything particular came up. And I'm not seeing as much, I don't plan on seeing as much wood shear on the end grain gluing as I did for like the long grain. There was a lot of, not a lot, but a decent amount of wood shear. So let's set this into place. Hold. Let's see, any questions? I've heard of people buying cabinet carcasses and stuff like that at IKEA, then making custom doors. That sounds like fun. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll check it in between tests. But let's go on this one. So you're against 30. 138. What was 138? That's Titebond 2. 138. And that is long grain to end grain, test 8 on section C. 138. So on this particular instance, Titebond Original did better than Titebond 2. But that's one of the reasons why I'm doing a whole bunch of these tests, 10 each. Because on average, I'm guessing the Titebond 2 will do better than the Titebond Original. But who knows? Maybe Titebond Original is better for end grain. But at this point, they're off by, what, 15 pounds, which is negligible. So pretty much the same between Titebond 2 and Titebond 1 on this one. So next up, number 9. Let's reset this. Different brands of PVA glues. Yes, in the future I would like to do Gorilla wood glue. I'm more or less on this particular test trying to gotta wiggle that back in. On this particular test, I'm trying to get an idea of different types. So I'm doing, the high glues, the PVAs, and I'm focusing on all these different types through contact cements and whatnot down the list. And in the future, I would like to do individual tests and actually go into a lot of other things. There are a lot of other glues out there, so I will be doing other glue tests in the future. But in this one, I'm trying to get kind of a broad overview of different types of glue as opposed to pitting one brand against another. So we'll see how that goes in the future. Why there is a -1 on there right now? Well, it's currently -2 because I don't have anything on there. But then with this weight on there, and then there's a little bit of weight in holding other things up that goes on there. So when I put this weight on there, it'll go down to -5, -1, somewhere right in that range. If you notice, I'm not. Sometimes the test will end with 0.5. I'm not worrying about that. I'm rounding everything down, so I'm not even looking at the last digit. I'm just caring about what those are, and that being that amount of information is not. It's well outside the average because most of the glue tests, the window is like 50, 60 pounds in any particular glue. of waving. Actually, on some of the higher poundages, it's more like 100 pounds difference between shear off strengths, which sounds like a lot, but when you get up around 500, 600, 700 pounds, it's really not that much. So get this in place. Let's see. We're gonna get some days. Why are you breaking that perfectly unusable coat rack metal? Yes. You like my coat rack? Let's see. Blocks. Different form. Is the wood the blocks are glued on from different blocks? Would different types of wood take different glues? Yes, different types of wood would take different glues differently. That's why I chose maple, because number one, it's hard. It would allow me to isolate the glue much better than most other materials. Number two, it's a diffuse porous, so there aren't a lot of pores for the wood to work into. So this is like a worst case scenario for the glue in this particular application. In the future, I would like to try oak because it's a ring porous. There's a lot of pores for it to work into. Something softer like maybe a Douglas fir, and possibly doing a couple of the rainforest to try oily woods and seeing how those do. So yes, those tests will probably be coming up in the future. I'll probably pick like the few best glues from this test and test those on the other woods, but we'll see. If you sound funny, I'm used to your voice in 1.5. Yes, sorry, normal speed. Cool. Let's move on with this one. So let's get the weight on there. $70, $80, $100, $30, $40. Ooh! Ah! You guys have distracted me again. If you could saw what that last one is, otherwise I'm going to have to go back and look at this one on the video. Man, that's twice, and I've done this like 2 or 3 times total in all the tests, and I'm over halfway through the test, so I forgot to put the hold on again. Let's see. Question mark. This is long grain to end grain. 11 C and question mark. And yeah, I have my second video, my second camera over here that is recording this, and it's shooting at 60 frames a second as opposed to this camera, which is shooting at 24 frames a second, so I can see what the last update was on it. Yet another reason why I'm doing 10 tests of everyone and not just 1 test of everyone. So tighten this up. Make sure we're holding this time. Get everything set up. Let's see if there's any questions here. Yes, I will be releasing the spreadsheet with the video on Saturday. And in the spreadsheet, I'll have all the raw data as well as my interpolations from it. Interpolations? I also have the averages, minimums, maximums, average standard deviance, and there's a few other things that will come out. So yes, I will be releasing that spreadsheet so everyone can look at the data individually for every single test I've done. And I'm also recording, like on the long grain to long grain, sometimes the wood will break and not just shearing the glue. So I'm also recording the percentage of glue, the percentage of wood that has broken in each test. So if the wood actually breaks, how much of the wood broke as opposed to how much of the glue broke. So let's keep going. We are holding, we're up against, we're tight. $194. 194, and this was white wood glue. Wow. So this is the Titebond white wood glue. So this was long grain to end grain, test 10C. Got that there, got that there. Hold, hold. Lower this back down. Let's move this over for the next two. I use the mallet for tapping this because I can be far more accurate than I can be with my hand. Just kind of wiggling it back into that spot because I don't want to hit the blocks. I just want to tap on the back of the wood. Okay, clamp that. Holding value good. And then let's go up. Yeah, I should be wearing a lab coat, but I'm not. See any questions before I go? Yeah, you know, I thought about the duration of wait, and I do have this hooked up to the computer, so if I want to, I can go back and see any of the bump graphs and actually see them in time. But I don't know. I've thought about doing some stress tests in the future. I just haven't thought about the methodology for doing it, for, you know, holding a block at like 100 pounds and seeing how long it holds at that weight. I don't know. I haven't come up with a good way of testing that, but I have thought about doing a longer stress test. What does this really say about us, both James being so... Yes, yeah, we're being very detailed about things that probably don't matter that much. If all 80 of us were in there, it'd be pretty crowded. Yes. Cool. Let's pop this one up. So here we go. 60, 80, 100, 173. Man, these glue tests are all so light. In the past, as I was doing the long grain to long grain, I might get up like 600, 700 on a few of them. 173 shows how much of a pain end grain can be. So this is long grain to end grain, test 11C, 173. So far everything is pretty darn close. Everything is like around... Though the high glues are a little weaker, but, well, not really. 111 to 200. All of the... this one, 173, was Elmer's Craft Glue, which I've been fairly impressed with Elmer's Craft Glue. It has been almost identical to Titebond white glue, and it's been really close to the Titebond original. So Elmer's Craft Glue is actually a decent glue, and it's cheap too, so who knows. So let's go back, hold, move this one down, slide it over, keep it tight against the frame, put that in, lock you, get you in place. Let's see, anything over here? That could be a long test, yeah. Yeah, this is going to take a while. Cool. Let's put this one up. Here you go. 70, 80, 100, 120, 142. 142. $142. This was long grain to end grain. 12. Yeah, that one is wood glue and super glue. So I put wood glue in the middle and then put a super glue on the outside so that you could actually see the difference. And that's kind of surprising. 142. It's really on par with the rest of them for end grain too. So now we're going to start getting into some of the super glues. I think the super glues are coming up next. 142. Make sure I got this. That was 12. C. Okay. Next step. I'm going to tap that one down a little bit. Now let's see how this one goes. Ooh. Number 13. What is number 13? Place your bets. Place your bets. Where do you think number 13 is going to pop? This should be kind of interesting to see where number 13 pops. Okay, hold. Hold. Question, do you anticipate the results will change your go-to glue performances? Maybe. I don't know. Probably. I'm guessing there will be some things that are like, wow, I would have usually used this in that situation, but now I won't. I doubt it will change my regular go-to for regular joinery, because, you know, as long as the joint is tight, the glue is kind of extra. But I don't know. I might be surprised. So who knows? If the test shows something big that I wasn't thinking about, then I may change in the future. Let's see. What does this go at? 58. 58. Number 13 went at 58. Oh boy. Let's see. This was long grain to end grain. Test 13. C. And this was at 58. So let's see. This was cheap super glue. Surprise, surprise. Don't use cheap super glue on end grain. 58. 58. And some of them, like that, the cheap super glue, you know, I just don't expect it to do well. So when it doesn't do well, it's kind of like, oh, good. Because if cheap super glue started doing well, and that was the glue that I should use, that may change my my whole construction method. But so far, cheap super glue, well, it's not doing very well on end grain now, is it? Okay, get you up into place, tighten down, hold, hold. And let's go on this one. Let's see if there's any questions. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Place your bets. What is this one going to do? This one is number 14. What will number 14 do? Oh, it broke. Without any fanfare, it broke. 44 pounds. It's like, I'm not getting any pressure here. What's going on? 44 pounds. And this was long grain to end grain. Test 14. C. And this was Fix-All super glue. So it's not actually a super glue, but it's made by the company super glue. It's a little bit more rubbery and stretchy. So don't use that on end grain. 44. C. Yes, I got that. So let's do the last two on this board. Slide you down a little bit more. Move you over. Now this one is test number 15. And let me tell you what this one is, and you can post your guess ahead of time at what this glue is. This is number 15. Number 15 here. Okay, this is 2P10, which is a super glue made by FastCap. And this is 2P10 thin. So it's really, really thin, runny stuff. So let's see how that does on end grain. Place your bets. Place your bets. Here comes the roulette wheel. Up into place. Hold. Hold. Okay. And here we go. 42. So don't use thin super glue either. 42. Long grain to end grain. Test 15. C. 42. But, you know, the surprising thing is 42 pounds of force on 0.75 square inches of wood on end grain. It's still really surprising that a thin super glue, will hold end grain with 42 pounds of force on such a small block. That's still a very surprising outcome. So let's go the last one here. And did anyone guess 42? No. Okay, so here's the fun one. This is originally I was not going to be doing the test between 2p10 thin and 2p10 gel and 2p10 thick. I thought, you know, super glue is super glue. If it's thin, thick, or gel, it's not going to cause much of a difference. But I've been surprised, and so I'm really interested to test this block because this block is 2p10 thick. So the last one was thin, this one is thick. And I really want to find out what this one does. So, not to mention I have to do this again 9 other times after this to get a fairly accurate measurement. So, flip that over, hold. Up into place. So let's see what this one does. What does thick do? 70, 80, 100, 153. Hot dog. See, that's why I'm like, there's a big difference between gel, thick, and thin. And so far, in most every test, the gel has done really well. In some cases, just as well as like Titebond or epoxy, which has been absolutely mind-blowing. Whereas the thin, in almost every case, the thin is trash. The gel and thick are actually fairly decent. So 153 pounds on 2p10 thick. Just mind-blowing, actually. 153. And this is long grain to end grain, test 16, C. 153. 153. So yeah, that is actually a rather mind-blowing thing. So yeah, let's move on to another board. So I figured I'd take you guys through a full test of all 32 glues. So that was 16 of them. Let me come on over here and grab test board C of the higher numbers. Test board C, there we go. Here's the other half of them. Yeah, and here's one. Glue number 31 already broke off. And glue number 31 was the rotten casing glue. That already snapped. So, one test done. So if you're using casing glue, don't let it sit out. So let me go ahead and record this one at 0, 0, and this one is long grain to end grain 31 C 0. Okay, let's continue on with the fun. So we've been kind of surprised with some of the super glue, and we're going to continue on the super glue vein because the last one was thick. This one is gel. Let's see if there's any questions here. John. How did Titebond 3 do? Titebond 3, in this one, Titebond 3 was the one I didn't see. Everyone was saying it was about 170. I'll have to go back to the video later and see what Titebond 3 was. A couple other questions. Well, Other YouTubers have tested glue in the joints. I've never seen anyone isolate just the glue strength. And you know, there's a wisdom to testing it in the joint because most of the time the joint's going to break before the glue. And so the results I get don't exactly draw out to what other YouTubers of, you know, Matthias and Lynn have done. And so this is a very different thing. I'm sure that some of them will be very similar to the idea of, I'm guessing, like Lynn showed that epoxy was extremely strong, wood glue was very strong, and super glue wasn't very strong at all. But I don't know. I really don't know. We will have to see what these all come out like. So let's try this one. This one is, let's see, number 17. Number 17 is 2P10 gel. So we tested the thin, and we got 42 pounds. We tested the thick, and we got 153 pounds. What do you think the gel will be? Make sure everything is set up here. Good to go, good to go. Let's shear this off. Holy cow! And we have a little bit of wood breakage. So far, this is the highest result we have gotten out of any glue, any of the wood glues. This super glue, this 2P10 gel, 248 pounds. That is mind-blowing. And it's the first one to actually take off some wood. It's only like 5% total of the wood that came off, which is not even recordable. But still, that is impressive. That's a super glue. That's a cyanoacrylate glue. 248 pounds. That's 248. And now you can see why I'm really excited about this, because results like this, I mean, if you were to ask me, you know, how will 2P10 stand up against, Tight Bond Original, you know, the cheapest of the wood glues? And I would say, well, Tight Bond Original would blow it out of the water. I mean, in this case, Tight Bond Original was 153, and this is 248. Yeah, the results like that are just kind of, I love it when results do not come out and match what my brain says they should. But I mean, we'll have to see what the rest of the other 9 tests of this glue and this substrate. Who knows? Maybe this was the outlier and it was crazy over the top. But I don't know. We'll see. Woo! Be careful of that. 248. So now let me redo this. Hue. Make sure that bounce didn't bump something. Actually, let me re-zero this again. So we're about a pound heavier than I'm normally wanting to be. Set this all in place. Yeah, I don't know why, but the scale slowly creeps up about a pound. So there, we've got nothing on it. It's only a half pound. Oop. Turn the hold off. 0. Turn the hold back on. There we go. So this is number 18. What is number 18? Okay, this is, again, we're going to do 2P10. Good thing I checked that. 2P10 super glue. Why did that weight suddenly go up? Oh, because I have it on hold. There we go. This is 2P10 thin. So the thin that we had before that only held up, what, 42 pounds? We're trying that again, but this time we're using activator. And that was one of the things I really wanted to see. Does activator actually change the strength, or does activator have any bearing at all in the actual strength of the glue? So this is 2P10 thin with activator. Sorry, now I'm getting really excited because these results are like, oh yes, happiness. So here we go. 63. So not much. 63, and that is within the variance. 63 to 42 is pretty average. I would expect, you know, if I got a 63 and a 42 on thin, I'd probably see 1 or 2 in the 30s and 1 or 2 in the 70s. Long grain to end grain. This is glue 18. C. 63, 63, 63. Let's see, what would be interesting to take top performers of each category and see how and if the bonding strength degrades over time. Yes, that is actually one of the tests I really want to do. Is, I'm really blown away by the 2P10 gel. It has really been performing exceptionally well. The question I have is, what does it do over time? Does it become more brittle and shear over time? Or does it become stronger, or does it change at all? And the same thing with tight bond. I don't know. So I'm thinking that later on I want to take the key tests from this, and I want to make up a pile of batches and store them away in my garage. And then like every 2 years come back and test them again and see, did anything happen in 2 years? And see how does the glue actually compare from one to the other. Does it get weaker? Does it get stronger? I think that would be a fantastic test to do, but it would take a long time. So let's keep going. What is number 19? Ooh, this one's a tight one. So let's see. Number 19 is 2P10 thick with activator. Place your bets, place your bets. I've been saying that too much. I should really stop. So what do you think? Will this stay fairly close to without activator, which was 153? Or will it be wildly different? Will it be stronger? Will it be weaker when you add the activator? Here we go. Whoop, 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 whoop. Hold. Whew, that was close. 226. That's kind of surprising. 226. That is significantly more than without the activator. Still within the variance I might expect, but really on the high side of that. So, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe activator actually makes it stronger because it cures faster. I don't know. These are the things I want to know. These are the tests I want to do. A lot of times we're kind of worried about using activator. It might weaken it, but what if activator actually strengthens it? This is long to end grain. Test 19C. And that was 226. 226. 226. Yeah. Yeah, and humidity changes. I'm making sure that the humidity and temperature in my shop stays really close. So my humidity right now is 40%, and I'll let that go up or down 2 or 3%. And then my temperature in the shop is 68 degrees, and I try and keep that within 1 degree so that I can test all these at the same temperature and the same humidity. Except for when I do the exterior, because they'll come in dripping wet, and so that will change the humidity in the room. But yeah, let's move this over. That's why you're hearing my furnace kicking on occasionally, because I'm making sure that I'm keeping it a very tight tolerance while I'm doing this. Hold, hold, tight. Okay, so let's see what this is. This is number 20. Number 20 is 2P10 gel with activator. So this is the one that did really well last night, 248. So far it's the highest that we've ever had. When I put activator on it, does it make it stronger or weaker? Is it going to go higher than 248? Is it going to go lower than 248? So far the other two with activator have been higher. But we'll see. I don't know. Move that back here. Hold is on, good to go. We'll bring that in a planer. 123. And see, then it's things like that that make me go, what's different? And that's why I'm doing 10 of every test, because the standard deviation is a little larger than I'd like to be. I mean, if I really had my druthers, I'd do 100 of every test, maybe 50 of every test, and get that standard deviation down a ways. We get a really nice bell curve on there. But yeah, see, 123. What's up with that? Long grain to end grain. And so that's why whenever I get a reading like that, I look at the wood block and I say, is there less glue on here? Is there less adhesion? What was the difference in the two? But in this one, it looks just like that one looked. So long grain to end grain, this is test 20C. Cool. So that should be it for the super glues, I think. Yeah, now we can start moving into some of the others. Let's try a poly. And let's see how this one goes. Now this is probably one of the most requested glues that I've had. And this one is number 21, which I remember correctly. Oops, 123, got to write that down. 123. Sorry. Number 21 is Gorilla Glue. So this one should be interesting. What do you guys think? How strong will Gorilla Glue be on end grain? Is it a high performer? Is it a low performer? Because I have a lot of people who swear on Gorilla Glue and other people who say never use Gorilla Glue, and others are like, Gorilla Glue's decent. So this is one of the tests I really want to see. Let me ask the question. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The thin and thick may have worked themselves into the wood grain a bit more before the activator kicked it, whereas the gel may not have gotten into the thing. That may be a really good explanation. That may be one of the interesting things we find, that use activator on the thinner glues but not on the thicker glues. That would be one of those findings that would be kind of interesting. And I won't know until I complete all the tests and really get a good data point. Yes, I am making sure the fibers shear or the glue shears. And on these ones with the end grain, there really isn't much of any fiber shearing. Most all are the glue shearing. I had one glue, the 2P10 gel without activator, sheared off a little bit, like less than 5% of the actual surface, which is negligible. I record if it shears off 25% of wood, 50%, 75%, or all of wood. And that way I can kind of get an idea of how much of this was actually the glue breaking and how much was actually the wood breaking. And from that point I can interpolate that, if 25% of the wood breaks, then I should probably add like 25, 30 pounds to the test. And so I'll be doing an average as well as an adjusted average for wood breakage. So you can kind of see the difference between those. But yeah, let's do this one. This one is number 21, Gorilla Glue. Let's see what Gorilla Glue does. $120. So, okay. Nothing to write home about, but not bad. That puts it in the range of most of the hide glues. 21C. So now let's try 22. Move you down. And what is 22? Now, most of the time when I'm testing this, I'm not going to look at what it is. But for your guys' fun, I like to tell you ahead of time so you can kind of be surprised or unexpected. Let's see, what is 22? 22 is, okay, this is 3M 5200, which is supposed to be like the ultimate marine glue. It is supposed to be the cat's pajama and amazing stuff. It's kind of like a construction adhesive, but extremely slow curing. It takes 7 days of clamping this to hold it in place. So this is supposed to be the stuff to use. particularly in marine applications. So let's find out. Either I'm going to be surprised, or I'm going to be surprised, or I'm going to be like, whatever. Question, to clarify, that was regular Gorilla Glue, not Gorilla Glue. Yes, that was regular Gorilla Glue. I didn't want to do Gorilla Glue Wood because it's another brand of another PVA. And I'm not testing brand against brand right now. But in the future, I will be doing Gorilla Glue Wood. But just, it's another PVA. Here we go. Oop, hold. Hold. $42. The answer to the world, the universe, and everything. 42. Long grain to end grain. This was 22. C. This is 42. So, yes. This really, really seriously expensive marine glue. I hope it holds up under the water outside. We'll find out. Any input devices? I don't know what you mean by input devices. No, I can't type right now. I don't have any keyboard or mouse over here because my computer is all the way on the other end of the room, and I haven't gotten an extension set up to put it out here, so I don't type. I try to answer these occasionally, but except for there's like a minute delay between my answer and that coming out. Yeah, I don't see if there's any question. Cool. So let's do this one. We're going to move that over. Number 23. So the next glue coming up. A little more. Let's see. What's the next glue coming up? The next glue is number 23. So what do you think number 23 will do? And to help you aid your response, glue number 23 is, okay, now we're getting into epoxies. So this is West System epoxy. This is supposed to be, the premier epoxy. This is what I use to build airplanes. This is good stuff, supposedly. This is particularly with 205 fast setting hardener. So West System 205. Put that in place. Hold. Tighten you down. So let's see. What do we think? Do we think this will be the new best? Do we think this will be horrible? Let's find out. Before I do this, do you clamp the blocks? I'm curious to see. Cool. Here we go. West System epoxy. Lifting the board into place. Oh my. And we got some wood breakage. And not much. So we've got probably about 10% of wood breakage. And yeah, some things like this. So far, the epoxies will often break at a lower pressure, but they'll break with a little bit of wood breaking on there. And that, I haven't quite figured out why that is. Maybe it's because the epoxy itself is more brittle than PVAs and things like that. So it has a good bond in some places and other places not. Or, yeah, I don't know. But 88 pounds with about 10% of wood breaking. So, 80, wrong pen, that's why. 88. Also, the epoxies tend to have a very large standard deviation. So I might have this one break at 88 and then have another one break at like 200. So, yeah, I don't quite figure out. I would probably have to do a larger test sample on epoxies in the future to get an accurate number. As I'd like to do a larger test sample on everything, 10 might just not be enough. long grain to end grain, 23C, 88. Now let's move on. I don't whack my board from the end to slide it because that actually causes more jostling, and it's wedged in there pretty tightly. The least amount of jostling is actually just to tap it in. It looks like I'm using a lot of force, but I'm just barely tapping the backside. I'm using a mallet because my palm is just a bit too fat, and if my palm spreads out, it might contact the test sample. So I'm just tapping with the back of it on there. Okay, so this is glue number 22. And glue number 22 is West System epoxy, but with the slow resin. Does slow resin cure harder or softer than the fast resin? Let's see. See if there's any questions. Okay, here we go. I forgot to hold. It was somewhere around 100. Let me hold it for the end of this. It's got a little bit more wood to break. There we go. Yeah, same thing again. 122, but probably has about 10% wood breakage on there. Which wood breakage for the end grain is rather impressive. But still very surprising. How can it have a lower pressure but break more wood than the others? I don't know. 122, long grain to end grain. This is 24C. 122 is 10%. Yeah, one of the reasons why I have no problem with this being really tight is I'm going to use these boards again in the future for this test. And so next time I'm going to plane a thin surface off the board, and that will bring it down into the thickness that will be absolutely perfect. So I'm not worrying about the jig being tight on this one. I will be doing more tests in the future. Just takes a little bit of wiggling, but oh well. And when have I ever done things the easy way? Why are you asking such stupid questions? Come on, people. Some of the boards are just perfect and they slide in without any coaxing. And some, like in this case, I'm just going to tap it on the back here, just a light tap to get it in past that corner. A little bit more, right there. Same thing on this side. And once it's in past that corner, then I can rotate it into place. Whereas if I hit it on the end, it's actually wedged in there. When I rotate it back into place, it pinches the whole thing in place so it doesn't move around on me. Okay, let's see what this is. Okay, next glue. This is East Coast resin, which is one I had a lot of people asking me for. It's another epoxy, fairly common, but a decently cheap budget-priced epoxy. So East Coast resin, really, really clear epoxy too. So it's kind of a nice, good epoxy if you want that clear look. So let's lift this up into place. Good to go there, there. Here we go. 67. No wood breaking. 67. And this is long grain to end grain. Test 23C. 67. Question: the epoxy might penetrate the fibers more than other glue types, and the fibers are giving up before the epoxy does. Yeah, that's actually probably a pretty good assumption, because none of these wood tear outs here are really deep. They're mostly a surface taking the fibers right off the surface. So probably the epoxy has completely surrounded that particular fiber. Especially with the slower one, it may have worked in a little bit farther. Although they were pretty similar between the slow and the fast. So, yeah. And this one should be interesting. If I remember correctly, this one is 5-minute epoxy. No. Oh, yes, 5-minute epoxy. So, let's see what 5-minute epoxy does. And I got to clean that off. Sometimes this one had way more squeeze out than the others, and it doesn't allow me to get the frame all the way up against it. So I've got to grab a chisel and clean that out a little bit. Because if I can't get the frame all the way back into the substrate, then I don't get a good reading. But I have to do it without breaking that piece. So it takes a little bit of wiggling. But I want to make sure that the frame is all the way tight against, so I get a good reading. Because if it's out a ways from it, I may end up busting off the wood because I'm putting the pressure on the wood and not the glue joint. I really need a sharper chisel over here. All my chisels are on the other side of the bench, which I'd move the camera to get to. There we go. So, let's see how this one does. Wait. 1, 2, 2, yes. Okay, let's try this one again. Five-minute epoxy. $216. Wow. That's surprising because it's a really nice clean break. Not much wood on there at all. 216. That is impressive. 5-minute epoxy. Long grain to in grain. 26 C. 216. Thanks for the. Started, yeah, I believe. Question: the epoxy. Oh, no, I read that. Okay, cool. We're up to it. So I have 5 more tests to do on this, and I'll probably end the session there. So if you have any particular questions you want answered, wow, we're already into hour number 2. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll try and get to them. But we have 5 more glue tests here. So these last 5, let's see what we have left. We have construction adhesive. Well, this is actually a foam board glue. It's a type of construction adhesive. It was the only one I had on hand. I'm going to do other ones in the future. Then I have barge, thin to barge, Super 77, and one that the Europeans will probably like is Cascamite. C-A-S-C-A-M-I-T-E. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but I was told that by several Europeans that I've got to test this glue. So I'll be interested to see how well it does. Hold, tighten that down. And here we go on number 25. Number 25 is the construction adhesive foam board glue. 70, 80, 121. Respectable. Nothing to write home about. 121. Long grain to in grain. 29C. 121. Okay, next up we have number 28. Number 28 is barge. Contact cement. I wanted to try a couple different contact cements and thin cements to see regular contact cement as opposed to a sprayed contact cement like Super 77. are those even valuable for wood glue? So this one should be interesting. Place your bets. What do you think a contact cement will do for wood glue? Hold. Let's see if there's any questions before we go on. What brand was that 5-minute epoxy? It's Econe, E something. I don't have it here with me. It's the fairly common one you can get in slightly larger bottles. What about long grain to long grain? I have a whole nother test of long grain to long grain. So I'm testing long grain to long grain to end grain, gap filling, and then exterior conditions. And in each of those, I'll be testing each glue 10 times. So 40 tests of each glue times 32. That's 1,280. It's a lot of glues to test. So, try out duct tape. Yeah. I'm going to do... Okay, so here we go. This is number 28, which is barge. Let's see what barge does. Hold is on. Good. 34. Yeah. Don't use contact cement for wood glue. 34. Long grain to end grain. This is 28. C. 34. And so far, most of the tests I've done, it's pretty similar. Contact cement is not a good woodworking glue. I was honestly surprised. I was honestly expecting more out of contact cement. I used it quite a bit in the past for other applications, and really enjoyed it for things like foam, things like open cell foams, and I was expecting more. Oh well. So let's try this one, which is thinned contact cement. So you would normally expect a thinned contact cement to do better, but who knows? It might actually soak into the pores better. So let's see what a thinned contact cement does. Okay, here we go. Ready? And we have 7 pounds. We have a new... Well, okay, no. My broken casing glue is the winner at 0. 7 pounds. Don't thin out your contact cement if you're going to use it on wood glue. You might look at it wrong and it snaps off. 7 lb. So this is long grain to end grain. Test 29, glue 29, test C. This one is 7 pounds. Okay, let's move on to number 30. And this one is Super 77, so spray contact cement. Let's see what it does. Has anyone of the U.S. continental or Europeans heard of it or even used it? I'm German, by the way. Yeah, I don't know. I actually had ordered the Cascamite from Great Britain, so I don't know who actually uses it, but I got a lot of recommendations for it. So let's try this. Lifting it up into place. Well, it's not bad. 93. So the Super 77 spray adhesive did better than the Barge contact cement, which is kind of surprising. The more I try Super 77, the more I really like it. It's a really good contact cement. 93 pounds. Still nothing great. Long grain to end grain, number 30, test C. 93. So let's move on to the last one that I'll probably do on this live stream. Here we go. So if anyone has any questions, put them in there if I haven't answered them. put a U in there. Slide you down. So this one is the Cascamite, or however you're supposed to pronounce it. That in there. That in there. Lift it up into place. On there tight. Good to go. Here we go. 66. You know, for how much the British really talk about this stuff, so far, I'm not impressed. Yeah, it's a very brittle glue. So, I don't know. 66 pounds. It's supposed to be, you know, the good woodworking glue over there, but 66 pounds, and that was long grain to end grain, test 32C. 66. So there. Let me move this over so you can see a little better. So yeah, now we have gone through a full run of 32 glues, and so now I got to go back and do that 8 more times for the long grain to end grain, or excuse me, 9 more times for the long grain to end grain, and then do it another 10 times for the exterior glues coming up. So this is really turning into quite the project. It goes a lot faster, and I'm not doing live chats on here. So if there's anything particular you have any questions, otherwise I'm going to turn this off and get back to things. Shouldn't you be testing 5-minute epoxy 5 minutes after? Yeah, but how often do we actually use it then? That would be interesting to actually test 5-minute epoxy 5 minutes after it's been used. Although it's supposed to be workable for 5 minutes, and then its curing time is like an hour, I think it is. So I don't know how that goes in. Have you done any of the long grain to long grain tests? Yes, I have completed all the long grain to long grain tests already. I'm not telling people what they are because I'm giving that as a bonus to my patrons on Patreon. I actually had a live video the other day where I went over all of the gap filling and long grain data with them. So that data is now active, which if you're a Patreon, you can go and see that. But yeah, I will be doing long grain to long grain, end grain to long grain, gap filling, and exterior conditions. Yeah, thanks, Woodwork Life. Yeah, I will. I will actually be releasing the data to everyone. It should be coming out as long as I can get it all done. Saturday at noon Eastern Time, 11 Central. So hopefully I will have the final video put up with all the data then. It will be kind of interesting to see how it comes up. I just had to stop and say, oh, thanks, Buck. Buck 890100. What is the estimated date? Yes, so I just done it. So that's about it. Yeah, so I'll probably be manning the chat for a few more minutes after I turn this off. So if you have any questions to ask, go on there. But yeah, if you have any particular questions you'd like me to answer, feel free to send me an email. I have a contact form on my website, and that's about it. So yeah, this has been fun. Now I've got a lot more of this to do. Yeah. So until next time, see you later.